So the first thing I want to talk about is pagan values in general and some of the sources of those values. So I think a very important idea in a lot of indigenous and earth-based religions is the idea of reciprocity. And we can see the idea of reciprocity in ancient Norse paganism, we can see it in Celtic paganism, and we can see it in many indigenous cultures around the world. For example, one of the sayings in the Havamal, which is a Norse poem which contains the sayings of Odin, there's a thing about a gift for a gift, and this whole idea of reciprocity is a very important value in paganism generally. So what do we mean by reciprocity? One of the things that is actually a very widespread value. So for example, if I buy you a birthday present, it's quite often the case that you will now feel obliged to buy me a birthday present, right? If I send you a birthday card or a letter, or if I phone you up, or remember to wish you happy birthday, then at some point there's going to be a reciprocal thing that you're going to do that in return for me. Or if I invite you around for dinner, then hopefully at some point you're going to invite me around for dinner, because that's how we roll, right? So this is actually a very widespread value, but it is something that obviously dates back a very long way, and it's about people helping each other as much as anything else. And it's these ties and obligations that knit society together, and these are represented in the runes by the rune Gabo or Gifu, which looks like an X and represents that exchange of value, exchange of gifts, because the name of it means gift. It's related to the word giving. Another really important idea is the idea of cyclicity, and this is the idea that everything goes in a cycle, fairly obviously. So the Earth is round and it spins on its axis, and we have the seasons. So winter, spring, summer, autumn come back every year, and we can see these cycles in the cosmos and in nature generally. Plants come up, they put forth blossoms, and then those grow into fruits, and then the fruits fall to the ground and the seed goes into the earth, and then you get another plant, and then the whole cycle starts again. And the idea also applies to human life. So we have birth, death, and then rebirth, because a lot of pagans believe in reincarnation. And so this whole idea of cyclicity, of interlocking cycles, cosmic, natural, and plant and animal life, all repeating and reasserting themselves over and over again, is a really important thing, and we shouldn't be disturbing those cycles or putting them out of whack, which obviously we are with the amount of carbon that's being pumped into the atmosphere, causing climate change or global heating, is disturbing that cycle of the seasons and the cycles of the oxygen exchange and all the stuff that keeps the temperature of the earth on an even keel is being massively disturbed. So we need to rein in our carbon emissions, otherwise the temperature will rise, and then that large areas around the equator will become uninhabitable, and that is not good. check out the recent series by David Attenborough on actually film on YouTube, Netflix, which was his witness statement on the environment throughout his life and how the wilderness is disappearing, and that is bad for humans as well as very bad for animals. So anyway, so the environment is obviously very important in paganism because it's an earth honoring religion. So another key value is hospitality, and it's good to remember that hospitality is reciprocal as well. So the word guest and the word host come from the same Indo-European root, and the role of the host and the role of the guest are quite clearly defined in ancient societies, and it was very important to be a reasonable guest and a reasonable host, and the responsibilities were fairly clear. And you can see how that obviously ties in with the value of reciprocity. So paganism is a religion that celebrates being alive. This means that we don't despise the body. We celebrate the natural cycles of the body, so menstruation and digestion and sexual urges and all that stuff, as long as they are consensual, obviously. That's very important. And so there's no like fasting or kind of denial of the body. It's all about being in harmony with your body. So I love that line from that poem by Mary Oliver, "Let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." I think that sums up the value really nicely. For me, solidarity is also a pagan value. Solidarity with the oppressed, with indigenous peoples, with refugees, ties in with obviously ties in with the hospitality bit as well, and really important, living in harmony with nature. So that's part of being in the balance with cyclicity and also being a good guest on the earth, if you like. Now, this one, a common treasury for all, is actually a saying that was made by the diggers or the levelers in the 17th century. But it basically states the idea that the earth should be shared, that we are sharing it with other than human beings as well, so animals and trees and ecosystems, and that it is a common treasury for all, and that no one should take more than their fair share. So that's why I would say that capitalism is incompatible with paganism. And by capitalism, I mean the idea that people invest in a company and then they don't do anything actual physical contribution towards it. They just sit there and wait for their profits to come back to them. And that has been the basis of an awful lot of exploitation and depredation of natural systems and oppression of indigenous peoples. So that's why I think capitalism is the enemy of sustainability, basically. So then a further idea is the idea that the divine or deities are immanent in nature. So, for example, there could be a god on the margins of the wood. There could be a god in the storm. There we have the goddess of the moon, deities of the waters, and the spirit that lives in the well, And this obviously shades into the idea of animism, which is the idea that everything has a spirit. Now, if everything is divine and everything has a spirit, then that implies that we should be treating it with respect. So again, this all ties in with the harmony, living in harmony with nature, not taking more than your fair share, solidarity with the oppressed. It all kind of ties in to make a coherent whole. So now it's also the case that not all pagans necessarily live up to these values the whole time. We all fall short, but they are some of the key ideas in paganism, in my view. Okay, now I am a Wiccan, and in Wicca we have the 8 Wiccan virtues. These came from The Charge of the Goddess by Doreen Valiente. This is a picture of Doreen Valiente with some very nice candlesticks. So we have honor and humility being the first one. So if you, now to me, honor is behaving honorably in a decent way, helping the oppressed, that kind of stuff. And being true to your word and not lying, trying to be honest in all your financial dealings, and generally being upright and decent. And humility is literally means close to the earth. So obviously there's a negative side to honor, which is this the idea of kind of standing on your dignity and I'm not having that. And that's why honor and humility balance each other out, because humility is having a realistic idea of your strengths and your abilities, and trying to keep that in balance and not let your ego ride roughshod over other people. So if you're too much on your honor and your dignity, then you start to get an unrealistic expectation of what your rights and privileges are. And that's why you need humility to balance out honor. So if you take those two together, in my view, they make integrity. So you could say the unifying value of honor and humility is integrity. Then we have strength and beauty. And I showed this list to a Catholic friend once, and he said, why are those two virtues? And I actually had to think quite hard about this. So for me, I think strength can be seen as kind of an inner resilience, and beauty can be appreciation of beauty, but also trying to behave beautifully to other people, perhaps. They say that if somebody could be really, really good looking, but it might actually be a horrible person, in which case would they really be beautiful? So I think there's inner beauty as well as, and strength doesn't have to be about physical strength, although that's probably helpful, especially for helping people undo jars that they can't undo, and doing useful DIY around the house. It's very useful quality. So for me, together, strength and beauty makes me think of that song that David Bowie and Freddie Mercury did, Grace Under Pressure. So for me, the unifying quality for these two would be grace, as in gracefulness. So yeah. So the next one is power and compassion. And again, at first sight, these are kind of not an obvious pair, I guess. So power, I think the Quakers had the idea of power over, power from within, and power with, which Starhawk famously quoted. So obviously power over other people is not necessarily a good thing. In some cases that it can be used in a helpful way, but mostly it's not. So power with, where you empower others and share power by the consensus process and that kind of thing, is a much more constructive thing. And then there's power from within, which is having your own power to do what you need to do. So autonomy, in other words. But this must be tempered with compassion. So compassion for those who can't do for themselves, for those who are suffering, and you know, and if you think about it, compassion literally means feeling with. So it's having empathy for other people. Now it can, again, these two balance each other out really well, because you can have too much power, and then you might ride roughshod over other people. So therefore you need compassion and you need to have empathy to understand the other person's point of view. But conversely, if you were all compassion and no power, you'd have basically be like giving away all your money and constantly upset about other people suffering, which, you know, given how much suffering there is around at the moment, it wouldn't be terribly surprising. But you know, it's hard to function if you dwell on that the whole time. So you do need some boundaries, and you certainly need some boundaries because giving away all your money isn't actually going to help anyone, especially not you. So you need those two things in balance to make sure that you do what you can and you do what's in front of you, but you do need the power to say no sometimes, because you don't want to be taken for a ride as much as anything else. And the last one, mirth and reverence. I always like this one because mirth is a really important quality. One of the things we say in Wicca is merry meet and blessed be. And so, you know, we value being merry, and we value mirth. And, you know, if you had lots of reverence but no mirth, then you'd be all like po-faced and kind of ooh. And if you were mirthful all the time, then that would get really wearing, because it's like, you know, we've all met those people who can't take anything seriously, and it can be really annoying. So that needs to be tempered with reverence. But if you had too much reverence, then you'd need to temper it with mirth. So it's good to have those two in balance with each other. So those are the Wiccan virtues. I should have included the iron pentacle and the pearl pentacle from the fairy tradition, but I don't feel qualified to speak about those. If you want to find out more about those, you should go and read Evolutionary Witchcraft by T. Thorne Coyle, because it's very good. Anyway, that's the Wiccan virtues. And actually, not everybody subscribes to these. A lot of people say, oh, you know, the Wiccan read is all you need. I really like the 8 Wiccan virtues, and I think that more people should be into them. So, yay, Wiccan virtues. Okay. So in heathenry, we have the Havamal, and there are many different values expressed in the Havamal. But I thought I'd pull this stanza 3 and 4 out, which are about hospitality. So remember I said in the first slide that one of the key pagan values is hospitality. Well, here we are. Fire he needs, who with frozen knees has come from the cold without. Food and clothes must the farer have, the man from the mountains come. Water and towels and welcoming speech should he find who comes to the feast. So these are the obligations of the host. And now we have the obligations of the guest, which come from stanza 4 of the Havamal. If renown he would get, and again be greeted, wisely and well must he act. So if the guest wants to be invited back, he'd better behave properly. So, and here we have this engraving from 1908 by W.G. Collingwood of the stranger knocking at the door. And I think that the value of hospitality is really important. And this actually is, again, a very ancient value because it goes right back to, Indo-European values, because it's found everywhere from India to, across Europe. So it's clearly a very ancient value, very important. And in case you're wondering, the backdrop of this slide is Gullfoss in Iceland, which is an amazing waterfall, and I have been there. Okay, so Druidry. Druidry is very interested, or modern Druidry anyway, is very interested in peace and with the cultivation of wisdom and also creativity. So this is from the OBOD website. They have a nice page about ethics, which is an extract from Philip Cargom's book. And this poem, which appears on the page, is from the Instructions of Cormac, which is an Irish medieval text. I was a listener in woods. I was a gazer at stars. I was blind where secrets were concerned. I was silent in a wilderness. I was talkative among many. I was mild in the mead hall. I was stern in battle. I was ready to watch. I was gentle in friendship. I was a physician of the sick. I was weak towards the strengthless. I was strong towards the powerful. I never was hard, lest I be satirized. I never was feeble, lest I should have my hair stripped off. I was not close, lest I should be burdensome. I was not arrogant, though I was wise. I was not given to promising, though I was strong. I was not venturesome, though I was swift. I did not deride old people, though I was young. I was not boastful, though I was a good fighter. I would not speak about anyone in his absence. I would not reproach, but I would praise. I would not ask, but I would give. For it is through these habits that the young become old and kingly warriors. So interesting set of values here. Like the first part seems to be talking about, fit the context you're in. Stern in battle, gentle in friendship, silent in a wilderness, talkative among many. So it's like, when you're with company, be sociable. When you're in the wilderness, like, shut up and appreciate the wilderness. And it's also about being kind of decent and, not boasting, not being arrogant, not whittling on about your own problems when, in case it burdens other people, and not gossiping. So all the kinds of things that are really a general set of ways to behave decently. Interesting poem. Here you go. Okay, now another key idea in paganism is that darkness is not evil. And it drives me absolutely bananas when people go on about darkness as a metaphor for evil. Because to me, darkness represents the goddess, and it represents like night and sleep and, the moon and the stars, which are very beautiful. And it's also part of the concept of cyclicity. So, let's all stop being mean about darkness. And also, it's kind of racist using darkness as a metaphor for evil because, people with darker skin. So, just stop. Like, use beige or something like beige. There's nothing good about beige. Just like beige should be the metaphor for evil. As in Hannah Arendt's The Banality of Evil. Anyway, let's talk about the nice parts of darkness. So this is something I wrote many years ago, and I've incorporated it into my recent book, Dark Mirror, The Inner Work of Witchcraft. Pagans do not see darkness and death as evil, but as part of the cycle of life, death and rebirth. If there was no death, there would be no growth, no change, and no birth. If there was no darkness, the seeds could not gestate in the warm darkness of the earth. If there was no night, there would be no sleep, and no stars and moonlight. If there was no winter cold, there would be none of the beauty of autumn. The seeds would not germinate, and germs would not be killed by the frost. So darkness is really, really important for rest, renewal, and regeneration. And darkness and light are inherently bound up with each other. Like we have the moon and the stars at night, and also if you stare too long at the sun, you will become dazzled, and then that's the darkness that's inherent in the light. If you think about the yin yang symbol from Taoism, there's a little white dot in the middle of the black swirly bit, and a little black dot in the middle of the white swirly bit, which shows that darkness and light are inherently connected and together. So very important concept. Okay, further reading. There are many books I could have recommended. I've been told that the Joyce and River Higginbotham's Paganism, Introduction to Earth-Centered Religions is very good. I haven't read it myself, but a couple of friends recommended it. Definitely recommend the work of Crystal Blanton, who is excellent. And Drawing Down the Moon by Margaret Adler is a fantastic guide. It was written in the 90s, but it's still very relevant, I think. And talks about pagans, and it's kind of almost an anthropological study of paganism. Anyway, well worth a read. So check those out. Also want to draw your attention to my other videos. I've been doing a potted history of witchcraft. So episode 4 of The Witch's Mirror is Witchcraft in Antiquity. Episode 5, Witchcraft in the Medieval and Early Modern Period. Episode 6, The Rebirth of Witchcraft. Episode 7, The Adolescence of Witchcraft. Are you sensing a theme developing here? And episode 8, The Coming of Age of Witchcraft. So do check those out. And also do check out my recently published, completely revised, updated editions of Dark Mirror, The Inner Work of Witchcraft, and The Night Journey, Witchcraft as Transformation. And these have new material as well as updates to the existing material that was in the first edition. So do have a look on the Doreen Valiente online shop. They will be available on Amazon as well, but please try to buy them from like local bookshops before you go to Amazon to get them. And indeed, just go straight to shop.doreenvaliente.org. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this whistle-stop tour of Pagan Values, and I'll see you next time.